I'm Karima Brown. You're watching The Fix. I'm in conversation with the National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson, Mr. Sipho Ngwema, and Accountability Now's Paul Hoffman. Let's get straight to it, Mr. Ngwema. It is not just, as Mr. Hoffman correctly pointed out, Ms. Noko and Mr. Maema, whose conduct is under question here. Let's come to the Gauteng head of prosecutions, Mr. Chauke. He's also named in the Kock report. Earlier on, I asked you what internal disciplinary processes you are following in relation to these two. In terms of the act, someone from another province is not meant to be prosecuting someone outside of their jurisdiction. What exactly are you going to be doing in relation to Mr. Chauke's role in going after former Hawks head Johan Boysen?
Thanks, Karima. As I said earlier, now, even what Paul is saying, that view by the NTPP was informed by the conditions that existed before the regulation was changed. Now that we have access to all the information before the Commission, we can then be able to look at the matter in its entirety. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether or not there were delegations that were given by the previous national director, but all the inquiry processes, be it criminal or be it DC processes, will be able to determine them. So a decision has been taken. Now that we have got access to all the information, then we are going to be able to act holistically. We don't have to wait for the Commission. We would have waited for the Commission because we did not have a full picture. But now that we have access to that information, we shall have a full picture and shall be able to determine and be able to inform whatever disciplinary inquiry has to take place, what would be the terms of reference of that process. Okay,
so from what I'm understanding you to say is that you could well have a second, let's for argument's sake call it a Mokgoro Commission, to look into the fitness of Advocate Noko. If that is an option, then of course that has to be actioned by the President. Do you have a date with Cyril Ramaphosa as the NPA yet, Mr. Ngwema?
Again, Karima, we have to look at the facts so that when we then give a right to the President, we're able to give him a full picture and everything. So once we have not had the liberty of looking at all the information at the Zondo Commission, we're interacting with them. Once we get all that information, it will then be we will then be able to give that information to the presidency in order for them to do what is necessary in order to get to the bottom of the issue. So for now, we will be guided by the evidence that we are going to get from Zondo.
But let me give you some evidence. Mr. Ngwema, just in relation to the conduct of Advocate Noko. When she was the head of the NDP in KwaZulu-Natal, she also withdrew charges against Mr. Pandey and Colonel Maduhu, who attempted to bribe General Johan Boysen. She also withdrew charges against Mike Mabuyakulu and Miss Peggy Ngonyeni in the Amigo case. Now, her record is checkered. Fidel Haffiji told this to your boss, Shamila Batoy, and you obfuscated there as well. You have a growing list of instances where your prosecutors have acted in ways that are seriously undermining the rule of law. What are you waiting for?
We're waiting to get the entire evidence. You must remember, we can't deal with these things on a piecemeal basis. Yes, in terms of your standards, you can be able to extract that which you wish to extract, but when we have to act, we have to make sure that everyone who is implicated in this thing adversely is part of that inquiry, and we're able to get to the bottom of the issue.
I'm going to bring Mr. Hoffman in, but I want to put another matter to you involving the head of the NDP, the Provincial Prosecuting Authority here in Gauteng, Mr. Chauke. He was here when the investigations into a former health MEC, Brian Hlongwa, was done. The NPA's asset forfeiture unit was also involved, so was the SIU. I think Mr. Willie Hofmeyer, who used to be at the NPA were part of those processes. Those cases miraculously went away. Mr. Hlonga was never prosecuted. There's a lot of suspect behavior around Mr. Chauke as well. This report is a year old, Mr. Ngwema. What confidence must the public have in you if you seemingly seem to be dragging your feet when the evidence is stockpiling on not junior prosecutors but heads of entire provinces who command other teams when they are implicated for serious wrongdoing? I mean, this surely undermines your attempts to restore credibility and faith in the NPA.
What is very important, Karim, and I think you must note this, processes when you are dealing with these matters are very important. You may lose a very critical case simply because you ignore processes. What you have just proven to me now, we are bringing another evidence with regards to one of the people that you think should be investigated. And this is exactly what we expect from the information that we are going to get from the Zondo Commission in one particular aspect, so that we don't leave things outside. And when we start an inquiry, it's an inquiry that is all-encompassing, that is able to deal with all the issues that we must deal with. So indeed we are, and in fact we have even said in this.
All right, it seems as if we've lost Mr. Ngwema. We're going to try and get him back. Let me bring in Paul Hoffman from Accountability Now. The NPA makes important points, Mr. Hoffman, even though the citizenry is impatient around process, because obviously you can't bungle the processes, as Advocate Noko and Advocate Mahema has done, to go after someone because you want them to be guilty. There needs to be a solid legal process. But that's different from obfuscating and dragging your heels. In your view, what is the case here? Is it a case of actual legal processes that are delaying these investigations, or is it a case of a lack of will inside the institution?
Well, all I can say is what we have just heard from Sipho contradicts what we heard from his boss in the webinar with Ferial Haffajee, from which we quoted at the beginning of this program. She was saying we are going to await the outcome of the Zondo inquiry, which is an attitude which suggests that the can is just being kicked down the road endlessly. Now he is saying, no. We're going to get on with various processes, all of which brings me back to the point just before the ad break, which is that the NPA is not in a fit state at the moment to get itself involved in the investigation of matters of grand corruption. And I find Accountability Now in very unusual company on this point of the ANC, resolved at its meeting at the beginning of this month to instruct or direct, request the national cabinet in the country to form a new anti-corruption body that would operate in the style of the Scorpions of old, but would be able to continue in office, unlike the Scorpions did. Now, that suggests that not only has the public lost confidence in the NPA, but the leadership of the ANC has also lost confidence in the NPA, and it is really now up to Cabinet to take forward the resolution of the NPA and to properly implement the decisions that were made in the Glenister litigation by the Constitutional Court. Those are binding decisions that haven't been properly implemented, which is why we are in the situation we are in now, having this debate about whether to wait for a Zondo commission which isn't involved in a criminal inquiry at all.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman, let's hold that thought. Let's bring Mr. Ngwema in again. Mr. Ngwema, you keep on saying that you need time. If I look at Mr. Boyson's paperwork, because he's been at this since 2015, Boyson succinctly describes all the lies of Mahema and Noko in court papers when he challenged Sean Abrams, your boss's predecessor, the authorization in 2016. The lies of these two were brought to your attention in 2016. So they've been with the NPA for 4 years. How is it that you are still not able to tell us what disciplinary processes you are going to follow?
No, let's go back again, Karen. I think you're missing my point. I said the NTPP is the one who commissioned this panel, and this report was given to her. But this panel was not about the conduct of individuals. At the time, it was started because Mr. Boyson had challenged...
Mr. Ngwema, with respect, you have made this point. We are not arguing about that. I'm asking about Mr. Boyson's papers, court papers. You're the National Prosecuting Authority. When you institute an inquiry around someone, you needed to decide whether you're going to proceed with racketeering charges against Mr. Boyson. So I would presume that apart from setting up the inquiry, you would also familiarize yourself with all the other documents preceding this. This report is a year old. I'm saying that Mr. Boyson in 2016 already brought this to the NPA's attention. So you knew this before the Kock group got together and wrote their report. They confirmed what Mr. Boyson said. And still you're telling me you need more time. For what? What do you need more time for? Your own internal panel set up by no less than the deputy head of the NPA confirmed what Mr. Boyson said in 2016 in court papers. What is the cause for the delay?
Okay, let's listen to understand. I said, and I think you keep on harping on things that happened before the regulation.
But they are related. It's not about harping back. You are the one that wants context. You want time because you say we can't be illegal and we can't abuse people's rights. I'm suggesting to you that the NPA had these facts before you even constituted the Kock panel to write the report to make a decision on whether you're proceeding with racketeering charges. You are not able to factually counteract me on that. Please give me a rational reason why there is a delay. Why are two advocates, one is the provincial head in the Northwest, still in the employ of the NPA when they have broken laws?
I think let's do this again. I'm saying the new National Director of Public Prosecutions, on whose behalf I speak, last year set up this panel in order to understand all those issues you're harping on about. And then the decision was taken with regards to the charges. They were withdrawn after she applied her mind, after she got this report from the panel. And secondly, I said, none of the people implicated in that report were invited to put their side of the story. I said again, because we did not have access to all the information.
But you had access to the court records. So what are you talking about? What information exactly did you not have access to? Please take the nation into your confidence, because you had the court papers of Johan Boyson. Your own panel confirmed this. The report is 1 year old. So what is still outstanding, sir?
What was outstanding, as I was saying to you, is that if you were to approach the president to do an inquiry, you needed to have a complete view of what the allegations at the Zondo commissions were in order for you not to leave out anything. When the inquiry is instituted subsequently, it's able to cover all the allegations on that matter that relates to the conduct of all NPA officials. I then said to you, in the last 2 weeks, those regulations have been changed. Now we don't have to wait for that commission. We can access that information. And therefore, we are going to take action in that regard. Before that, it was impractical because we did not know exactly all the allegations pertaining to NPA personnel. And therefore, if an inquiry would have been started, there was a possibility that we may have left out some people that needed to be investigated. But now we shall have access to that information so we can be able to advise sensibly to the presidents in terms of who should be covered and what the terms of reference of that inquiry should be. So those were the practical problems that
Okay,
we had.
Mr. Ngwema, we've got a minute. I'm going to ask you one final question. Can you give the public the assurance that you are going to investigate the conduct of Advocate Noko and Advocate Mahema?
We are going to investigate. Firstly, there's a criminal prosecution with regards to the poison matter. And two, from a DC point of view, we are going to take a decision with regards to that process so that it's done sensibly and it's done correctly within the regulations and the law. So the poison matter is not off the table, and we are going to give urgent attention because now we can have access to all the information we need.
All right, that's where we will end it. Thank you very much to the National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson, Sipho Ngwema, and also Accountability Now's Paul Hoffman. You've had your fix for the week. See you again next Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.